Gary?
Fine. Let's roll.
Hey, Gary. Welcome. Well, folks, we're going to have a great call tonight. I think it's one of the calls that I would love to have been on if I was just a starting copywriter, because what we're going to do tonight is talk about some of the most effective strategies, some of the most pressing questions that you have about writing effective copy that sells. I want to introduce you to Gary, but first, before doing that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Michael Fortin. Some of you know me as the Success Doctor, and you probably also know that I've been the copywriter for some of the biggest names on the Internet today. For example, I've written copy for John Reese, Yannick Silver, Michael Kimball, Kurt Christensen, Stephen Pierce, Sean Casey, and many more. And I started out in copywriting because I had no choice. I was a salesperson in my early career, and I was just not making any headway with some of the more traditional door-knocking techniques. So one day I decided to write my first sales letter, and then lo and behold, by writing copy, I've noticed my sales starting to skyrocket, because now I was attracting people to come to me, qualified people that I could easily sell to. And then later on I discovered direct mail. I was writing direct mail pieces and selling with sales letters and copywriting. I was also writing TV commercials and producing TV infomercials for some cosmetic surgeons and hair transplant surgeons. And then later on, I decided to plunge into copywriting full-time, and now I write copy almost exclusively for the Internet. One of my mentors throughout this entire process is a man who I believe is the king of copy, the prince of print. I think Gary writes some of the most compelling copy available in the world today, and even on the web. If you study Gary's letters, and probably the single greatest copywriting how-to resource online, which is the GaryHalbertLetter.com, you'll probably you will build not only the single greatest and most profitable skills you can ever learn, but you will also have an edge over 99.9% of the people out there. And by studying, I don't mean just read those letters. I mean write them out, word by word, if not all of them. And look at how Gary uses tempo, uses psychology, the subtleties and nuances, how he tells compelling stories, how he uses emotional grabbers, how he presses emotional hot buttons. All of those things are super important. How he makes these compelling offers that makes you whip out your wallet and buy now. Because, before long, when you do that, you're going to find yourself writing copy that grabs the attention of the reader until the very last line of your copy, until they order your product or service. So be prepared, because this call is probably going to be the most power-packed call you've ever been on, and dare I say, the most important call of your life. So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce you, the greatest copywriter of all time, my mentor, Mr. Gary Halbert. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to talk a little bit and before I address your questions, because I want to kind of motivate you to really learn this. I live in Miami, and every day on the eastern coast here in southern Florida, people wash ashore from other countries, mainly from Haiti and mainly from Cuba. I want you to imagine that two Cubans wash ashore on the same day, maybe 10 miles apart, but they're both barely alive, but they're healthy, okay, and they make it. One of those Cubans used to work as a dishwasher, and he found a way to rip off some of the guests at the hotel where he was, and he has $500,000 in a waterproof bag strapped to his body. He comes ashore with $500,000. The other guy comes ashore, and he doesn't have anything except a tattered pair of bathing trunks on. He has nothing whatsoever, except that he is a brain surgeon. He was a brain surgeon in Cuba. Now, let's fast forward to about 3 years from now and take a look at both of those guys. The first guy, the guy who had $500,000 that he stole, it would be my guess that he will no longer have his $5,000, that he'll have gone through it, he'll have partied his way through it, and now he will be scratching to make some money. He'll probably end up being something illegal in drugs. He'll probably be dead. He might be in jail or something, but he won't have much. The guy that came ashore with nothing, he'll live in one of the best sections of Miami. He'll maybe live in Coral Beach. He'll have a Mercedes, probably a great wife, the beginnings of a family, a very lucrative and high-paying career in a hospital, etc. The difference is that the guy the last guy I talked about came across with true wealth, the only wealth that really exists, which is the wealth between your ears. Somebody can take your money away, but if you have it between your ears, you can never be poor. You can only be broke, and that's always a temporary situation. And in my opinion, there is no more valuable skill in the world than to be able to write a written sales message. A written sales message is the basis of everything, from television script to radio to newspaper ads to internet, et cetera, et cetera. I once did a seminar called it's the best seminar I ever gave, How to Write a Sales Letter That Will Make You Rich. And the word letter should have been changed to message. But if you can write a sales letter, and I've done it, you can literally reduce your overhead to like $1.19 for a legal pad and a couple of ballpoint pens. You can do it any place. You can do it from the rainforest, etc. A lot of people, if they're copywriters, they ask me, I'm a copywriter, how do I get clients? Well, that is an indication that he hasn't really learned his skill yet, because a good copywriter never even has to think about getting clients. If you want clients, I mean, if I wanted to work, I can guarantee you I could work 40 hours a day, 365 days a year, and never begin to scratch the surface of the number of people that want to hire me. About 3 weeks ago, I wanted to have a little extra money. I wrote an email. It took me 11 minutes to write it. So far, I've made $95,000 for it. I was just bored for a few minutes. You can really get to the point where you do that, too. Now, I could tell you all the successes I've had. A lot of people know about those. The most widely mailed letter in history that mailed 600 million copies, and a lot of things. But I'm telling you, you can do that from the jungles of Brazil. You can do it from a jail cell. It is a portable skill that is the most valuable skill you can ever learn. And if you learn it, I promise you, you can have anything in the world you want. You can use it to get yourself all the money in the world. You can use it to get yourself the finest specimen of the opposite sex you could possibly want. You can use it to produce presidential elections. I am literally begged by both parties, and I won't work for them, because I don't think if I worked for any of them that the party I worked for could lose an election. And so it's really worth learning to do this right. And I'd like to kind of to tell you something that I think what I try and do is I try and write in a way that has an impact on people. And I want to read 2 letters to you. And I start my seminars this way. And both of these letters are written to your mother. Whether she's living or dead, we're going to assume it doesn't matter. And I'm going to tell you, what I have everybody do is I give everybody 2 first-class stamps, 2 number 10 envelopes. I have them write the address in the upper left-hand corner of the envelope. For anybody that's really a novice out there, that's the corner. We call that the corner card of the envelope. And I have them add one additional thing, which is the date and the day, because I never want them to forget this. And then I have the address to their mother, but to their own address. In other words, the seminar's, the attendee's address. And then I have them handwrite 2 letters to their mother. And I'm going to read to you the first letter. Dear Mom, I'm very busy right now, and I don't have time to call, so that's why I'm writing you this letter. You know, Mom, not only are you responsible for my very existence, you are also the nourishment that has made my life sparkle. I'm under a lot of stress right now, and for some reason, I started thinking about you. It has occurred to me maybe I haven't let you know recently how much I appreciate you and how much I love you. I especially like remembering you, and then I have them fill in something special, like on my 18th birthday when you gave me that gold Rolex watch or whatever it was. Anyway, I'm going to make it a point to see you just as soon as I can, and then you sign love and your name. I have them fold that up, put it in the envelope, put a stamp on the envelope, and seal it. Then we do it all over again with the second envelope, and they write their name at the top of the envelope and the corner card, and below that they write the date and they write the time, which will be just a few minutes later. They address the envelope once again to their mom, to their home, and then they send me, they write another letter to their mom. This time it says, "Dear Mom, : if I weren't such a long way from home, I probably wouldn't have the guts to tell you this, but the following has been true ever since I was born. You have made my life a living hell. Every person I know has a mother that is superior to you in every positive way imaginable. You are nothing more than a wrinkled-up old bitch, and as far as I'm concerned, the biggest waste of skin God ever created. Speaking of God, as the good Lord knows, you're certainly not too mentally swift either. So just in case your low IQ keeps you from understanding what I'm trying to say, let me make it perfectly clear, ... and then we have a subhead. Eat shit and die. Please don't call or write me. I have no inclination whatsoever to communicate with you ever again. Reluctantly, your son or daughter," you sign your name, and then it says, "P.S. Dad sucks too." All right. I wish I could hear the reaction of people on the line listening to that, but I'm going to pretend I can, and I'm going to ask you the same questions that I ask the people in my seminar. First of all, I don't know if you can unmute this just for a second so I can get a reaction, but I want to know how many of you people on this call think that had your mother received one of those letters or the other, that there would be much of a difference in her reaction depending on which letter she got. Do any of you think that's true? Can you unmute it and have them tell me that?
Sure, just a sec. There we go.
Okay.
I don't think I can unmute because we have the call is so packed that we have so much feedback on the lines here.
I'm going to assume that most of you are smart enough to realize that there would be a dramatic difference in the reaction of your mother depending on which of those letters she got. And then I would ask all of the attendees, and I'm going to ask you, what is the difference in the cost between the two envelopes? Virtually none. What is the difference in the energy that it took you to address the two envelopes? Virtually none. What is the difference in the amount of postage you paid to mail those two envelopes? Virtually none. What is the difference in the cost of the sheet of paper upon which you wrote the letter? Virtually none. What is the difference in energy and time it took you to write that letter? Virtually none. All right? And yet, one of those letters would have created a great, warm, bonding feeling, and another one would have caused despair and a great deal of grief and unhappiness. And what was the difference? There was only one difference in the world, and that's the words on a piece of paper. There is nothing in the world that is stronger than the words on a piece of paper. Whether they end up being spoken in a speech, delivered in a script or anything, but the written word is the strongest, most source of power in the entire universe. Now, I'm going to tell you something else before we get into questions. Really and truly, it doesn't matter after a degree how good of a writer you are. It depends. What you really want to be is a good knower. You need to know things that other people don't know. That will make the big difference between your response. Now, I'm going to give you an outlandish example. Let's suppose that you're at a New York cocktail party, very sophisticated, and there's a beautiful woman in there. And everybody is trying to hit on this beautiful woman. And there are guys go in there that tell her they can get her into show business. There are guys that tell her they are multimillionaires. There are young guys with ripped abs. There are guys that talk about their cars. You know, there are guys about how they own a modeling agency, et cetera, et cetera. but you have some special secret knowledge that nobody else in that all those guys trying to pick her up knows. And what you know is that she's a heroin addict and she's dying for a fix. So everybody can make their pitch, but you can walk over to her with a baggie of powder and show it to her and say, hey, I just scored some good skag. Would you like to try it out with me? That girl will be out the door with you in a split second because you hit what she really wanted. Now, that's an exaggerated thing, but I would rather make my points in an exaggerated way than have you not get them. So the first thing you need to know is you need to start knowing things. You need to know about people. You need to know about strategies. You need to know a lot of things that you don't know. I'm going to tell you a few of those things to get started. Let's suppose that you had a rich uncle who died and left you 1,000 homes all over the United States. And for some reason, they all had to be sold in 90 days, and they all had to be painted. And they could only be painted one color. Would you know what color to paint them? I would. You would have them painted yellow. Why is that? Because yellow is the color that has the most. What if to paint them, if you live in America, you should paint them silver? Because that's Americans' favorite color for cars right now. It's silver. This is an example of knowing things. You need to know those things. You need to study people. Now, I'll tell you some things that you don't know that were really important for you to know. Decades ago, Claude Hopkins conducted an experiment in newspapers in New York City with millions of circulation. And he was introducing a new product to market. You didn't have to pay to get a sample of this product because they knew that once you sampled this product, you would become a lifelong customer. So he divided the call to action into 3 cells. The first one was, it's easy to get your free sample of this product. All you have to do is write your name and address on a piece of paper and send it to us. As soon as we receive it, we'll send you the free sample. Cell 2, it's easy to get your free sample of this product. All you have to do is call such and such a number, give the operator who answers your name and address, and we'll send the product right out to you immediately. Cell number 3, it's easy to get your free sample of this new product. If you want, you can write your name and address on a piece of paper and send it to us, or you can call us and give the operator who answers your name and address. Either way you choose, as soon as we have your name and address, we'll send you the sample of the product. Now, I can't hear you, we can't talk, but I'm assuming you're still there. I always get the feeling that I'm talking to empty air when I do these calls. But assuming you're still there, I bet you would like to know the answer. And the answer is the call-only option triples the response for lead generation, triples the response. Now, there is a reason for this. The other 2 responses allow the person the option of delay, and delay is the death of a sale. But wait a minute. That was done 50 or 60 years ago. What happened if it doesn't? Now, I've tested it 17 different times, and the phone-only option triples the response every single time. It triples it. I bet some of you didn't know that. Now, I'll tell you something else I bet some of you didn't know. And you need to start getting off your ass and finding these things out if you want to get world class. Did you know that more people will call a POTS number than a toll-free number? POTS means plain old telephone service. Do you know that if you live in the 702 area code and you ask people to call that number, you will get more calls, and they'll be free, than you will if you put an 888 or an 800 number? You take your own guess why. I don't know why. I know it's true. Agora Publishing knows it's true. We've just tested it over and over. My guess is that when the people call a toll-free number, they are afraid they're going to get a high-pressure salesman or they're going to get trapped in voicemail hell. But it really doesn't matter. I don't really care what the answer is. I only care that I know the answer, okay? Now, a bunch of you people are working online, and I'm going to let you in on a little inside secret. Ed Dale tracked me down one time, and he said, He came over from Australia, and he said, I've been going every place and telling people I wanted to meet the best copywriter in the world. And he says, all roads seem to lead to you right here in this living room. And we talked. I said, that's very flattering. And we talked for a little while. And I said, hey, Ed, you've got some websites, don't you? And he said, yeah, I've got 5 of them. I said, I'll bet you I can talk to you for 3 minutes and dramatically improve the response of each one of your websites, every one of them, no matter what they're selling. He had 5 websites. And I said, if I win, you owe me a dinner, right? He said, okay. And I said, do this. Don't take away the page that says, click here to order. By the way, if you've got a website and you've got a page that says, click here to order, you are throwing money away. You're throwing it away. And I said, here's what you do. You say, it's easy to order. Just pick up your phone and dial such and such a number and give the operator who answers, your ordering information. He made that change. And it worked so well, he went back to doing it the other way because he didn't want the rest of the online community to know what he was doing. And we talked on the phone, and I said, hey, Ed, do you owe me a dinner or not? And he says, I think I owe you dinners for the rest of your life. Because the least improvement that he made was 200%, and it went up to 1,000%. Now, for you online guys, there's some online secrets I am not going to tell you. I mean, you're not ready for that powerful of secrets, but I'm going to tell you one very powerful one. I'm going to tell you a couple of very powerful ones. One of them is you get somebody to come to your site, and a lot of people, and Michael, you did this at AskGaryHalbert.com, and I told you there was a fatal flaw, and I was going to tell you what it was?
That's right.
Okay. You said, put your name and email address here. That stops a monster percentage of people from going any further. Now, I myself signed up for Classmates.com, much to my dismay, as I'm sure a bunch of you others, because they never, ever stop hitting me, and people fear that. Now, you notice on my website, you can click here to view newsletter archives, and the other thing is click here if you want to be on my announcement list. Now, I have thousands of people on my announcement list because they've learned to trust me, but you don't have to be on my announcement list. You can just go there. You can just go to my website and read all the stuff, and I don't have to know your web address. So that is a killer. Now, you got a lot of questions, but instead of 500 questions now, you would probably have, 3,000 questions.
Right.
If you hadn't put it there. Now, here's the other monster mistake, and I can see all your heads out there buzzing. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about, blah, 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 which is going to lead me to talking to efficiency versus effectiveness. But first, I'm going to tell you, if your website says click here to order, you are standing on a cliff throwing your money away. Because I will tell you something. Click here to order. How many people visit your order page and how many people order? I'll tell you what the average stats is. 1 out of 20 people who visit your order page order. Now, why would you guess that is? Do you think these people just like to window shop order pages? No, that's not it at all. The thing is, it is much easier to not fill that form of something they want than it is to make the telephone call. And you want to give them only the option of calling to get it. And people will say, but I want to capture their email. You want a sale, okay? So you make them call you. And another thing about order forms is everybody hates. Computers are completely unforgiving. You're going to ask them to type in their name, their address, a bunch of stuff, their credit card stuff, and if you transpose one number, bong, an error thing goes off. I know a guy, Scott Haynes, very good copywriter, very good friend of mine, wanted to order a piece of software and gave up after 17 tries. And the order form is an invitation to sales doom. Anybody that has a click here to order is throwing money away. But I'll tell you what, you guys think of, but it's so efficient. Now, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the difference between being efficient and being effective. I was born in Parkersburg, West Virginia. That is on the West Virginia side of the Ohio River. If you travel on the river 30 miles north and go to the other side, you will be in Marietta, Ohio. Now, the Mississippi River is possibly 1,000 miles west of the Ohio River. Now, I want you to imagine that two guys are in a canoe in the Mississippi River, and I don't care which way they're paddling, north or south, but they've learned how to paddle that canoe like pros. They have a perfect J-stroke. You know, they hardly ripple the water. They get the most forward movement for the least energy expended. But they're very efficient, just like everybody on the net is. They strive for efficiency. But guess what? They're never going to get to Marietta, Ohio, because Marietta, Ohio ain't on the Mississippi River. Now let's put somebody in the Ohio River that doesn't even have a canoe. Let's put him on a log and make him paddle with his hands. This is about the least efficient way he could do it. But as long as he's going north, he's going to get to Marietta, Ohio, because he's doing something that's effective. I wish I could get some feedback from you, but do you all understand the difference? You know, you strive to be effective. Efficiency is a bonus. But everybody on the web says, but this is so efficient, you know. You want to learn to do what is effective. Okay, that's a few opening comments, and now we'll answer some questions until I think of another rant to go off on.
Thanks, Gary. That was awesome. Thank you very much for sharing that. I have so many questions, as you know. I could have probably had more if I followed your advice.
Just hit them. We'll try them. Let me answer the question about long copy versus short copy.
This is the one question I think, out of 500, I probably got about 25% of it was just that one question.
First, I want to tell you that I think everybody that asks that question is a complete moron. But having said that, I'll try and redeem myself by explaining it to you. I want you to imagine that God came down from heaven. And if you have a wife or a girlfriend that you love, he took her away from you and you could never have her back. And he put 100 women on an island. And God said to you, I just feel like having some fun. And so because I feel like that, I'm going to make you select the woman you spend the rest of your life with from one of these 100 women. And just because I'm God and I'm feeling ornery, I'm going to make it a little bit more difficult for you. I'm not going to let you talk to any of these women on the phone. I'm not going to let you see a picture of them. I'm not going to let you see a videotape of them. Nothing. I'm going to ask every one of those women to write you a letter about herself, and from those 100 letters, you have to select the lady you're going to spend the rest of your life with. What do you want that letter to say? Hi, I'm Bunny. I'm an Aquarius, and I like to walk on the beach in the moonlight. I don't think that's the kind of letter you want. I think you want to know everything about Bunny. I think you want to know how old she is, how tall she is, how much she weighs, what color hair she has, what her teeth are like. That's just physical stuff. You want to know what she's into, what kind of education she has, just everything. You're going to spend the rest of your life with this woman. I'm Bunny, and I'm Aquarius doesn't get it. Does it? Now, let's bring that down to earth a little bit more because that's kind of exaggerated. Let's make it a car. And for some reason, you are no longer allowed to see the car that you're going to pick. The government came down and said, from now on, nobody can see a car before they buy it. They can't hear about it, anything. The car makers just send you a letter. Well, what would you want to know about the car? Hey, this is a good car. It gets great miles per gallon, goes from 0 to 60 in 5.4 seconds, and it's real comfortable, too. I don't think that's what you'd want I think you'd want a 50-page letter telling you everything there was to know about that car. And so it is with selling. The people who are not interested don't want to hear anything about what you have to say. I want you to imagine that an ad was written by me. I mean, it was just a brilliant ad, a brilliant headline, a brilliant copy. It just flowed etc. And it was about knitting machines. Now, I'm guessing that most of the people on this call don't knit very often, unless Rosie Greer's on the call. I don't think you knit very often. And it wouldn't make any difference how much skill I used to write that letter. But let's take another scenario. Let's say that you're married, and for some reason you have to be away from your wife. You can't be at the hospital. And while you're gone, your wife gives birth to triplets. And some guy comes up to you and he's trying to communicate to you that your wife just has triplets, but his grammar is screwed up. His English is faulty. But is there any way he could communicate to you that your wife just had triplets that wouldn't be of interest to you? That's the difference between world-class response and all this mediocre stuff. It's knowing what's important to people. You know, you could write in Pig Latin that your wife just had triplets. And you could be Shakespeare writing about the knitting machine. It wouldn't make any difference. You've got to know what's important to people. I didn't get very far before I stopped my rant, so I'll try a little harder this time.
That was a perfect explanation. Actually, Gary, I use that explanation when people ask me that question. And what I think, really, what we should do with that question, anybody that asks that question, if they're in public, they should be slapped right across the mouth. There shouldn't even be any discussion. Or you should send them your cousin Guido.
Yes, or send Guido.
I have somebody commented about that, and we had a post on my copywritersboard.com. Somebody said, I value my legs too much. I got to be on this call. Here's what I usually say.
By the way, that brings up another thing.
Sure.
Everybody in marketing, almost, is afraid to have a personality. That's what you need to have, a personality. You know, and everybody's trying so hard not to offend somebody. I believe what Dan Kennedy says, if you haven't offended somebody by noon, you're not a pro. You know, look, I have what I call the Boy George, John Wayne theory of marketing. You know, Boy George has his fans, and John Wayne has his fans. Now, never the twain shall meet. Some people like big macho guys that mow down Japanese people with machine guns, and other people like sexually confused singers who wear dresses. There's nothing wrong with either of them, but never the twain shall meet. And the thing about Boy George and the thing about John Wayne is they give you something to say yes or no to, don't they? You know, stop this nonsense of trying to please everybody. You can't do it. You give away thousands of dollar bills and you can't do it.
I think you said something in a seminar not too long ago or quite a while ago, I can't remember exactly when, but you said about people are so preoccupied about selling to the foxes without upsetting the dogs.
Oh, yeah, I said that when I wrote that personal ad that got me women from all over the world. There were a lot of fat, ugly women with mustaches that were offended by my ad. And I said, I didn't worry about offending the dogs. I concentrated on selling the foxes. And that's something you people should take to heart. Let's see how long I can go before I start another rant. Try a question.
That's a perfect explanation. I just want to add my little comment is that I usually tell people, if you were a Stephen King fanatic, and the fact that you are a Stephen King fanatic, that means you are a person who is targeted for Stephen King books. Stephen King puts out a book, and it's 800 pages thick. Are you not going to buy it because it's too long?
No.
Of course not. And not only that, you'll probably buy it, sit down, read it all in one single reading because you just absolutely love the stuff. You probably wish the book was either longer or you will reread the whole book again because it's so fascinating. And that's the key, is the fact that there's a difference between boring copy and long copy. Actually, I tell people there's a difference between long copy and long-winded copy.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. I'm going to take credit for that, though.
You sure can, Gary.
There'll be a point in time where I'll forget you said it, and I'll take credit for it. That's a great way to put it, Michael.
Well, there's another question that's sort of tied to that, Gary. One of the questions that was asked was, what's the difference between, or how can you write copy that's more, that's cleaner, that's less hypey? Because a lot of people say they see a lot of hypey copy these days, especially online. So how can you tell the difference between, copy that's hypey? How can you write copy that's not as hypey, and for whom? And how do you make sure that you don't just tell outright lies?
Well, first of all, hypey copy is used by people who really don't know what they're writing about. And if they don't know what they're writing about, the more adjectives there will be in the copy. If you have a lot of compelling facts, you don't need hype. Now, hype has a place, I think, but it is not nearly where you think it should be. If you'll study the masters like Claude Hopkins or stuff, you won't say that's hypey copy. But the best letters, the best sales messages are really hard-hitting and dramatic without using all those adjectives. And the people are using the adjectives in place of substance. And that's the problem with most sales writing today. People don't do their homework. They don't fill it up with substance. And if you have a lot of substance, you don't need a lot of hype.
Well, actually, that's a perfect lead-in to the next question is, what are the biggest mistakes you see copywriters commit?
The biggest mistake that copywriters commit is they don't know how to do what they're doing.
That's well said.
And they don't study. I'm going to tell you a few things that there are a lot of ways to write a sales letter, and this is not the only way, and it is not the only good way. But it's the way John Carlton does it, and it's the way I do it. We write the bullets first, because the only reason that people buy what you're selling from an ad, for the most part, is because of the quality of the bullets. Now, I have an ad in front of me that it's for a book I wrote called Killer Orgasms, How to Have the Best Sex Humanly Possible. It has 64 bullets in it. And about 14 of those bullets would be irresistible to me. But the point I want to make is a lot of people will buy something in a 14-page sales letter because they want to know the answer to one bullet. Now, I wrote a bullet for Entrepreneur Magazine one time, and this was back in the 80s when everybody was doing cocaine. And I wrote, fake cocaine, a legal substitute that fools everyone, even the experts. And do you know that for years, people were calling in to get that product just to find out what the hell that was? And I mean, it was buried in 150 other bullets. Now, this the promo for this sex book contains 60 bullets, but I'm going to read the ones that I would want to know if I didn't know the answer. There's very few of them. The real reason why Prozac and Zoloft are so popular in this country. Almost no one, even doctors, understands the startling sexual implications. The single biggest sexual complaint women have about men. The single biggest sexual complaint men have about women. Now, I put a star by this one. A dead giveaway which proves a woman is faking her orgasms. Okay, I have to go to another. I'm skipping over a bunch, which I don't think. What lesbians know about sex, which men don't, and why more men today are losing their women to other women. The single most important thing a woman can do to make herself more attractive to the opposite sex. The single most important thing a man can do to make himself more attractive to the opposite sex. And this is the bullet, I believe, gets more people than anybody else, than any other bullet, to buy the book. 3 surefire ways to tell if your spouse or significant other has had sex with someone else in the last 24 hours. The number one rule, which absolutely must be observed for women to have a truly spectacular orgasm. Okay, and then there's a whole bunch of bullets I don't have a star by. flirting secrets used by almost all women that 95% of men don't even recognize, and how it instantly makes sex 10 times more exciting when he does learn to recognize and understand these little-known secrets. The one best way to win the true, undying love of a member of the opposite sex. I'm skipping over some of these because I'm considering this a PG call. A 15-minute change in the way you shower and dress, which may very likely double your attractiveness to the opposite sex. I'll skip that one. How to guarantee your lover almost never stops thinking about you, and how to make sure her thoughts are supercharged with passion and white-hot, smoldering anticipation. A very important but almost unknown trick which will end nagging on both sides of the relationship forever. Then there's a bunch more bullets I haven't X'd, and we come to one. The single most important thing a man can do to win a woman's love forever. The most important and most little-known quality a man must have if he wants to acquire a truly desirable woman and have any chance of success. Women will overlook everything except this. Okay, I have nothing else starred, but there's something really, really important about these bullets. None of them were hypey, and all of them are based on truth. And what you've got to know is you've got to know the truth. Now, if there are some women on this call, and they are listening to it with a man, you watch the woman when I tell the secret to the bullet, and they'll nod their head yes. Okay, a dead giveaway which proves if a woman is faking her orgasms. Do you know what that is? When women have orgasms, they always curl their toes. They can't help to do it. They can't help not do it. Okay, 3 surefire ways. How about if we just change that? 1 surefire way to tell if your spouse or significant other has had sex with someone else in the last 24 hours. Is there any hype in that? There's no hype in that at all, is there?
No.
But isn't that something you would really like to know? The one sure way to tell if your woman's had sex with another man in the last 24 hours? Well, there is a way. And I will tell you what it is. And you'll say, aha, as soon as I explain it to you. Let's suppose you or your wife or girlfriend is having an affair with somebody in the office. They leave the office, go to a motel, and they have sex. What's the first thing they do after they have sex? They take a shower. They take a shower to remove the evidence. They remove the makeup residue, the lipstick on the collar, the scent of the other person, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if your spouse or significant other is all of a sudden coming home freshly showered at times where she wouldn't be, like she wasn't at the gym or at a ballet class or nothing, the reason that she's taking those showers is to remove the evidence of an affair. Well, the thing is, what I'm trying to point out to you is these things are facts. And I've twisted them into bullets. And these are called blind bullets because I don't give away the secret. The number one rule, which absolutely must be observed for a woman to have a truly spectacular orgasm. And we're going to stop talking about sex here, folks, because I know some of you are shriveling up. But you know what that number one rule is? The woman has to feel absolutely safe. And there's another one I like here. The one best way to win the true, undying love of a member of the opposite sex, especially a woman, you know what that could be? I'll tell you what it is. Small, unexpected gifts. not gifts that you give her for her birthday, not gifts for the wedding anniversary, just small, unexpected gifts that are special unto her. Like she likes to collect these little clay Peruvian figurines, and you seek out and find one. It might cost you $5, and you have it delivered to her with flowers, unexpectedly, out of the blue. And she will love you for that. And then there is one that it's not so much about sex as it is about relationship. And I'm gonna put on my relationship counselor hat here. And it says, a very important but almost unknown trick which will end nagging on both sides of a relationship forever. Oh, my girlfriend and I, actually she's my fiancée, is a woman who has the best heart I've ever met. She's also, at least to me, the most attractive woman I ever met. And I made a deal with her when we first started going out together 4 years ago, and I've never broken that deal. And she cannot imagine that a man would make such a deal with her. And here it is. The deal is, if I do anything that offends you or irritates you, you will only have to tell me about it once, and I will never do it again. Now, my girlfriend's Costa Rican, for example. Everybody in Costa Rica, they never eat with a hat on. So I take my hat off when I eat. Very simple thing. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to let this woman tell me I can never go out on one of my boats again or something like that, or I have to change my profession. But you know, the thing is, if you do things that irritate your loved one, and they're pretty easy to quit, most of them. You know, let's say that every day you come in the door and you take off your coat and you throw it on the floor, and it irritates the hell out of her. Just don't do it anymore. We have a contract with each other that we never do something that the other one expresses that causes them consternation. We never do it twice. And everybody can do that. But yet that made a great bullet. But behind that great bullet was a great truth. So I didn't have to use any hype to write this ad. Because do you understand? I was searching out strong truths, exciting truths, and then writing those exciting truths. And I didn't have to say a really killer way to have an explosive, mind-blowing relationship, you know, that sucks the air out of the room and then blah, 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 blah. You just make a simple statement of what that is. Now, when you write, you should. I would suggest to all of you, start working on your bullets first. Because if everything about the bullets, your whole piece is about the bullets. That's what it's about. And the rest of the piece is to get them to attract their attention to read the bullets, and to attract their attention or to get them to believe the bullets. That's the only purpose of the rest of your letter. Actually, although there's a headline. For example, I worked for Sam and Leslie Fishbein. They had one furniture store in Denver. They've got either 5 or 7 now. And they only have you have what you have to sell, and that's all you have. So what they had is a wide selection of furniture, low prices, no money down, no interest, 2 years to pay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What they had was what they had, and we call it the yada, yada, yada. That's what they got to sell. But the difference is, if you want to make it killer, you give the reader theater and reason why. Now, theater would be attaching a dollar bill to the top of the letter as a grabber. Oh, do you understand that? That would be theater. Theater would be attaching a real photograph to the top of the letter, or attaching a coin, or something like that. A reason why is why you're getting such a deal on this mattress. And one of the letters that we wrote told them that they got such a great deal on this mattress because we couldn't sell them on retail. Although the mattresses are perfect, we couldn't sell them at retail because the manufacturer screwed up and sewed the labels on backwards. That letter worked so well, we had the manufacturer sew the labels backwards on all the mattresses. And, or we would say that, it's been raining here lately, and we've got water damage on some of the furniture. And Sam would go up in the roof and drill a hole in it so that some of the water came down and screwed up some of the furniture. It's a variation, if you haven't read the Robert Collier book, of the scratch and dent cell, and that was the reason why. That's the first thing I described to you was theater. The second thing I described to you is reason why. But it all gets them to, when they read the yada yada yadas, to believe it and to understand it. By the way, I'd like to give a little bit of a pitch here.
Go ahead, Gary.
If I had to win a copywriting contest or one of my children would die, the person I would least like to have as my opponent is a man named Gary Benzavinga. And he publishes Benzavinga's Bullets, and they are free. And if you don't read those, you are missing a monster asset.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
And the last bullet he wrote was about one of the most important words in advertising, which is because. And he articulated it better than anybody I've ever heard. And Gary Benzavinga and I have had a mutual fan club, respect for each other for years. And one of my proudest moments is every Thanksgiving he sends a big 1-ounce gold coin to somebody that's made a big difference in his life. And I got one of those coins, It's one of my most precious possessions. And I'll tell you one further story about Gary Benzavinga. Jay Abraham came to me, and he was showing me these financial sales letters that people were using to sell financial newsletters, et cetera. And I said, Jay, these things are working? Because I never knew anything about that field yet. And he said, why, yeah, you think you could do better? I said, Jay, I could do better than this in a coma. And I just cranked these out, one right after another, never had a loser. It was easy. It was falling down a log. And then I was sitting in my apartment, Oakwood Gardens apartment in Burbank, California, and I read my first letter ever written by Gary Benzavinga, and I almost vomited. You know why? Because vacation time was over. From now on, I had to work for a living when I was writing those things because he's so damn good. It's ridiculous. So, and he's going to have a seminar
in May.
In May, and get your ass to that seminar. I'm going to pay to go there and be there. I mean, there are very few people for whom I will sit at the feet and learn, but I will sit at the feet for Gary Benzavinga. I know I don't have a JV deal with him.
I definitely will be there myself. It's if people want to subscribe to his newsletter, it's benzavingabullets.com. And the last one was exactly about that, the use of reasons why and the one word that can trigger the most response. And it was one of the questions that was asked a lot on that web page that we set up, Gary. And that leads me to a couple of things I wanted just to throw in here. A lot of people ask, what kind of scarcity tactics do you like to use? Because a lot of people nowadays, especially online, they go and visit this website that sells some kind of ebook that says, you've got to buy before X date, and people know that they've got this coding behind there that changes with every day whenever they visit the web page. So they say, are there any...
First, everybody knows that's a lie. And I don't think that you should write lies. Everybody knows if you say you'll only sell 500 and people order 700, you're going to take the other 200 orders. So stop doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you're talking about scarcity, for your copywriting services, be good. There won't be any scarcity. You know, I remember Denny Hatch used to write a newsletter called Who's Mailing What, and he mocked guys like me and Gary Benzavinga who said we couldn't take any more clients, that we were booked for a year. Hell, Gary Benzavinga would be booked for 2 or 3 years in advance, the bastard.
So are there any other scarcity tactics, Gary, that you would like to propose?
Well, I'll tell you one, and it's an important one that I use, but it also, the tactics need to be based on truth. I tell people I can only take so many clients, and that's the truth. I only can. You know, I mean, I could write continually, but I like to take time out to see my girlfriend and my grandchildren once in a while, you know? So that the scarcity tactic, first of all, don't lie about it, because but I'll tell you one thing that I have learned to offer people. If you buy something from me, like a fairly expensive set of tapes that I have to sell, you know what you get with it? You get free access to me for an entire year to answer your marketing questions. They can't duplicate that on eBay.
Great. Good answer. Actually, one of the things that I wanted to go back on was the bullets, because one of the most common questions I've gotten is, Gary, a lot of the copy that you write, you seem to alternate your bullets between bold and unbold and so on and so forth.
It's a technique that provides eye relief.
Gotcha. Perfect. In terms of the headline, and I believe truly myself that the single greatest part of your copy, besides the bullets that you just mentioned, Gary, the single greatest part is the headline.
The headline is the single greatest part of the copy. By the way, I've got a great headline. I want somebody to help me fill in what comes after. Half-dead Cuban washes ashore in Miami with strange secret that can double the income of most U.S. citizens.
Awesome.
You know what the hottest headline I ever wrote was?
Well, that was one question. Go ahead.
Tova Borgnine swears under oath that her new perfume does not contain an illegal sexual stimulant. and the whole city of Los Angeles was saying, is the sexual stimulant legal? And we got 7,000 people to come out for her perfume launch, the biggest perfume launch in history, and we couldn't get any more in because the fire marshals wouldn't let any more people into the Century Plaza Hotel.
Wow.
And one of the subheads was, wife of famous movie star agrees to give away 1,000 samples of her new fragrance in order to prove it's really safe to wear in public. Little theater there.
Well, here's a question, actually. It was based on that. A question was specifically for Gary Halbert. Do you think in this extremely cynical age that your traditional Tova Borgnine style promotions are still valid?
That question is almost too moronic to answer. What I do was valid when people were carving out their messages on a chisel, on a piece of stone, and they will be valid 2,000 years from now, when everybody is getting text messages on microscopic cell phones embedded into your brain. Selling is selling is selling, and it's all the same. The Internet hasn't changed anything about selling. Let me tell you about selling. There's only 3 things involved. You have a product, a pitch, and a delivery system for the pitch. All the Internet is a delivery system for a pitch. That's what you need to remember. And people say, writing for the Internet, and I know you do that. It's no different than writing for the newspapers, which is no different from writing for direct mail, which is no different than writing from television. What makes a good pitch is what makes a good pitch. And let me tell you guys what you're all doing wrong, all the online community. Everybody's doing this wrong. You try and get something from the reader before you have delivered a lot of value he can't get anyplace else. I would venture to say I have one of the most profitable websites on the Internet. And I, honest to God, put that website up after I had received thousands and thousands and thousands of letters from people telling me how my life had changed, how my information had changed their lives. Mostly it was about money, But sometimes it saved them from committing suicide. It inspired them to go on and make it. It saved their marriage or whatever. And I thought, well, hell, if it's that valuable to people, I'm just going to start throwing it up on the Internet. And, I just started putting them up. And after about 2 or 3 months, people started writing me and said, don't you have anything to sell? I want to buy something from you. And they started word. The last time I sent a full-fledged newsletter out, my Alexa rating, jumps up and down, whether I'm putting stuff on the site or not. It was 1,630. And I don't even know how to link my website to somebody else. I don't even know how to work Google AdWords. I know a little bit about that. I don't even know how to maximize the effectiveness of a website. I don't know any of that stuff. You know why my newsletter is so popular? Because it contains content. And a lot of you dorks out there are trying to make a lot of money without first figuring out how to serve people.
Good point.
I get riled when I talk. I talk about sex and politics this way too. Actually, I don't.
Well, here's another, and you've probably nailed about a good 50 questions right there, Gary. But one of the questions about the headline was, a lot of people say they've seen so many of these very long headlines. First of all, are they still effective, and what kind of formula do you use whenever you write a headline?
Well, okay, I'm going to try and get down to the level of somebody who would answer your question. I can get down to anybody's level. I just give myself a lobotomy here and lower my IQ about 70 points. Yes, long headlines are effective. Let me give you a few tips about headlines. If you're stuck, just start with the words how to. How to, and by the way, if you want to learn to write headlines, every one of you should have a copy of, I could never get it right, Julius Hadelman or Hadelman's Julius, The First 100 Million.
Right.
That's
right.
the basis of all good headline writing in America. Read The First 100 Million and you'll know everything you need to know for the rest of your life about writing headlines. And yes, long headlines do work, Patricia. Short headlines work too. For example, you'll see little ads, and it will just say corns, ? Everybody's going to pass by that little ad unless they happen to have corns. And that's all it needed was that one word. If you're dealing with a junkie, you can say, want to score some heroin? ? That's long enough. But most of you probably aren't dealing with people who have corns or the addict market. And
I think John Carlton, whenever he says a great word, he says he calls it pithicizing, which is a big difference between being brief and being pithy, because there's a difference between trying to be short and not saying the message you need to say, rather than saying the message that you can say to the right kind of people in the shortest amount of words possible. And a lot of people, sometimes they have these very long headlines that are just, you fall asleep. And I agree with that because they just don't know how to write copy. But I've written headlines.
By the way, I'll tell you one of the big differences between the people who really make it in this business and the people who don't. The